San Francisco.
All right, you guys, this is episode 40 of Inner Demons, and without further ado, I'm going to get straight to it. Yeah, I already know. It's been a while. I'm not even going to get into it. I'm just going to kick this off and try to pick up where I left off. Now, let me say this. So, we're going back almost 30-something years now, 92, 93. Now, I remember the Corcoran incident, the SHU wars and all that, but you guys got to remember, let's say I sit down at a table and sit there and try to remember where I was in 93, what parole violation I was doing, whether or not I was out, when I was out, what time was that. All that stuff is so convoluted because in 92, I stayed out a couple months and I did most of that year in parole violations. 93 was the same thing. 94, same thing. 95, 96, 97, 98. Then I caught a new commitment. Then I was back out. So I'm just going to run it to where I remember, whether it was 92 or 93, and a lot of this stuff, some of it you guys have heard, some of it you haven't. Some of the stuff is redundant, but it is what it is. So 93, I paroled from Corcoran. I go through the SHU wars, and I ended up paroling. Now, at that time, I paroled back to San Francisco, and I remember I caught the Greyhound bus. So for whatever reason, Corcoran didn't have a Greyhound bus depot right there that you could catch, like in the city of Corcoran, to go back to San Francisco. For whatever reason, you had to catch the train, and then you had to transfer somewhere like to Stockton or somewhere, and then shoot over and hit the city like that. So what I ended up doing is I remember catching the train, and this was around the time when they were doing high control parole, or they just started. So I caught the train. I remember, getting out. I remember getting my parole clothes that day that came, Corcoran. The day I paroled, I was ready to go, man. I popped up and boom, they took me to R&R. I dressed out and I caught the bus. Now, hopefully, I didn't listen to episode 39, so I don't exactly remember where I left off. But either way, I'm going to catch back up. I'm going to get my footing back up under me, and we're going to get it back to where it was. But anyway, so 93, you got to remember, I had intentions on plugging in with the regiment. At that time, my whole existence, everything that I was doing was somehow, some way it involved my commitment to the NR. And I was still aspiring to be a C at that time. It was 90, 92, 93, and I was still striving. I was hungry, but everything that I was doing, literally every time I paroled, I didn't think about, going out there and getting a legitimate job and, settling back down, trying to have kids, trying to have a family. I didn't think about none of that shit. All I thought about was getting out, functioning, being out there, trying to make money, trying to generate money, and continuing on forth with my commitment. So in 93, when I got out, I remember I caught the bus, or I caught the train, and I caught it to Stockton. Now, there was a female that I had remembered from San Jose that I'm not going to get into it, but she was living out in Stockton at that time, and I had the address. I was writing her, and when it came time for me to get a ticket and to go back towards San Francisco, I seen that one of the routes was through Stockton. So I was like, fuck it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to jump off right there, shoot by the pad, see if I can catch her. And if not, I'll just transfer over right there in Stockton and go to the city. So that's what I did. I went to her house unannounced, and it ended up being her mom's pad. She had kids. I remember, getting out, fresh out, healthy. I had my box in my hand. I knocked on the door, and I believe it was one of her kids that answered the door. And I asked for And they were like, no, she's not here. She's out there. She's back in San Jose. And I was like, all right, cool. Let her know that such and such came by. So I ended up making my way back to the terminal, the Greyhound bus terminal in Stockton. I sat there for a little bit. I remember I went to the liquor store. I got me a 211 and I chilled and waited for the bus. I waited for the bus. The bus finally got there. I caught the bus. I hit the city. So, this one time right here, I specifically remember this part in 93. Even though Corcoran is more of the type of environment where you interact a lot more than you do in Pelican Bay. It's kind of hard to explain. It's a bigger Corcoran, you're in a bigger section with a lot more individuals. And even though theoretically you do not interact with a lot of other people because it's different than it is in Pelican Bay. Let me try to put it in perspective. So Corcoran, I forget how many, but there's like 16 cells on the top tier, 16 cells on the bottom tier. That makes your section, right? So you got a lot of different cells, a lot of different bodies. It's a big community of different individuals. Now, you would think that because there's that many people in there that you would interact a lot more, that you would talk and whatever, fraternize with other individuals, and you would just interact a lot more, but you don't. Pelican Bay is a lot smaller. You got four cells on the bottom tier, 4 on the top, 2 showers, your yard, everything is self-contained within the pod. So those are your pod mates. That's your community that you're gonna interact with. Now it's smaller, it's more personal, so you interact more. However, my point in all this is, even though I was in that environment in Corcoran, I still got out and I still had that PTSD, whatever it was. I don't know if it was PTSD, if it was just some type of psychological issues I was going through because I was, locked up in those type of environments where, you don't interact with normal people. You don't interact as much as you do on the streets. But I remember getting out, and at that time, I still remember that I had a hard time adjusting to just doing the smallest, the everyday things that you do. Going to the DMV to apply for a driver's license or an ID, going into a store, buying groceries. Those little small things that you do without even giving it a thought, those are the kind of things that I had a hard time doing. I forgot how to do them. It's like I had to learn it all over again. I would go into a grocery store and I would stand in line, and I would just be standing there not knowing how to act, not knowing, just whether or not to stand there and look at people or to talk to people or to, pick up a candy bar, pick up a magazine and start reading an article, waiting, or I just stand there posted up, tense. And when I get uncomfortable, I get aggressive. So there'd be times when I would feel like that, my palms would start sweating. I would feel that, anxiety. I would get lightweight anxiety attacks. And when I feel like that, I would confront people that I thought were looking at me. Hey, what the fuck you looking at, man? Why are you looking at me? And, oh, you're tripping. Ain't nobody even looking at you, man. Nobody. It was all in my head. It really was. But, when you go into a regular grocery store now, I've been out, I'm acclimated. I've been around normal people. I've been, socializing with normal people that don't act like they're in prison, and there's no prison politics, and you don't have to have that mask on. People know how to just go into a store and just do things the regular way people do. I hope I'm explaining this to you guys right, because now I'll walk into a store, I have my little items, and if I'm waiting in self-checkout or something, I'll stand there, and I'll look around, and I'll wait for my turn, and I'll go up and I'll start processing my groceries. I'll start scanning everything, bag it up, and cool. It's not an issue. It's not even something that I even give a second thought to. It just comes natural. But getting out of prison and just doing something as simple as that, I wouldn't know how to do just something as simple, standing in line, something as simple as like, I just didn't know how to act, man. I did not know how to act. I had to learn all that again, how normal people function out there. You know, the mannerisms, everything from, giving somebody courtesy, everything from, showing somebody consideration or, greeting somebody. In prison, you don't do all that shit. Those things are looked at as signs of weakness to an extent. You always got to have that tough guy mask on. You can't trust nobody. You're always watching. You're always scanning. It was a habit for me to always scan, always watch everything that moved, to always pay attention to what people were doing. Psychologically, I wouldn't know I was doing it, but I would always listen. There could be 40 fucking conversations happening at one time, at the same time. I could be in a room, and prison did this to me. There could be 40 conversations. Well, let me give you a better example. I could be on a tier somewhere like San Quentin, and there usually was more than 40. There was like hundreds of different conversations going on. And I would be listening to them all at the same time. You train your ears to do that. You listen to all of them at the same time, not really processing what you're hearing, but just you're listening for key words. So listening to all these conversations, if a word popped up like pedazo, knife, drugs, movida, no good, something like that, I would automatically focus all my attention on just that one conversation. You guys understand what I'm saying? So those are things that you train yourself to do in prison for your own security, and it's just because it's all about staying on your toes, man. And those were the things that I had to learn how to undo when I got back out. I had to, it's not necessary. To an extent, I would still do it because even out here in the free world, you have to have, you always have to have your ear to the ground. You got to pay attention to your surroundings. There's a lot of shit going on out here in the free world as well. But, those simple things, I had to take 2 or 3 months to decompress and find my rhythm again to where I was just a normal individual. It was a trip because my mom, good example. My mom used to always tell me, you hear people talk about being institutionalized, and I've heard different people talk about it, on YouTube about them being institutionalized, others talking about they're not institutionalized, and who people out there on the streets know somebody that's institutionalized. My mom used to tell me, you're institutionalized. You got that shit bad. It's in your blood. Somebody that does it a little bit of county time, goes to somewhere like H unit in East Block or in San Quentin, and does a little bit of time on a level 1 and 2 yard, and you go home, you get a little 16-month term, you're not institutionalized. You could either do 2, 3 16-month terms, and you're still not going to be institutionalized. Now, somebody that puts in 30 years, 20 years, 15 years of hard time in some of these types of environments, like the SHU programs, the ADSEG units, where you're restricted as far as your movement and as far as you're interacting with other people. It has an effect on you. That's being institutionalized. When you take a lot of the habits and the mannerisms that you picked up in prison and you take that shit to the streets with you, that's being institutionalized. I don't know what, maybe other people have different definitions, but that's what it is. If I could roll my fucking mattress up out here, I probably would have done that. But your mattresses out here, you got them big thick fuckers, man, pillow tops. You're not gonna roll them up like them little 2-inch mattresses that they give you in prison or in the county jails. But my mom used to tell me all the time, she used to tell me like, you need to get that shit out your blood. Every time I would get out, she didn't want to be around me because, I was always fighting or I was always aggressive towards other people. We couldn't go out and just have a good time. We couldn't go have dinner or something without me confronting somebody or wanting to jump on somebody or start some shit, especially if I was drinking. I start drinking, then she was like, my mom hated me when I used to drink. As I got older, I calmed down and I was able to hold my liquor better. But when I was younger, I was a hothead. All the fucking Indian came out of me. I would drink and right away, boom, I pop up wanting to fight. You know, a lot of the shit that I did out there on the streets was because of the liquor. It wasn't like I needed liquid courage. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying it's because it made me more aggressive. It made me, it turned me into a dumbass, basically. I had no filter. I acted like an idiot, man, when I would drink. And I wouldn't just drink a beer or a couple beers. I would go by my mom's pad whenever I go by there and visit her, and I'd be bringing 64 ounces and shit, 2 3 40s, and she'd just be like, damn, motherfucker, you know what I mean? You're an alcoholic. But anyway, alcohol, that was something else that helped me. It helped me readjust to being back out there on the streets. I needed something to help me, and alcohol did it for me. Over the years, as I got older, I slowed down drinking because my body didn't process it like it used to. And then eventually I would pretty much stop. I used to wake up to a 211, but, like I said, as I got older, and you guys will find out what I'm saying, you guys will find out. It's all good when you're in your 20s, even in your 30s. Maybe you might even get away a little bit in your 40s, but after a while, it's harder for you to process the alcohol. It's harder for you to recover in the morning. You get up, you feel like straight death, straight shit. But anyway, let me move on, man. So I get out, I'm back in the city. I remember hitting the terminal. I remember getting some beer, either some 211 or some Old English 800. And I slammed a couple 40s and then boom, I was off, man. So at that time, I believe my mom was living in Daly City. She had an apartment over there in Daly City. And I didn't have nothing set up. I believe that I mentioned this in one of my previous episodes of Inner Demons. So when I was in Susanville, I started writing a female named Connie. And, the homeboy ended up hooking me up with her, the homeboy Caesar. What the fuck was his name? Caesar Castile from the city. So he hooked me up with her. He was like, hey, bro, I'm writing this, one of the homegirls from the city. She's got a friend. If you're interested, bro, I'll shoot you a pen pal. And I was like, fuck it, bro, shoot it. So we started corresponding. I had probably 4-6 months to the pad, and we continued to write. I never really thought it would go nowhere. Matter of fact, when I got out, didn't really even get in contact with her. The first time I got out in 92, I never even called her, didn't get in touch with her. But then I got arrested, caught another parole violation, and went back in. And I remembered the fucking address. I think I was in Quentin, and I was just like, damn, what the fuck is that address? And it came to me, and I was like, I'm gonna write her and see what's up, man. So I wrote her, and it ended up being her address. And I continued to write her until I got out in 93. So in 93, I called her up, and the first couple of days I kicked it with the family, spent some time with my mom and my stepfather. And I'll talk about him a little bit because he's relevant in some of the things that are going to happen in the future. I spent some R&R time with them, just kicking it with them, just spending time with them. I had been away for a long time, and I used to just go over there and just chill with them, man. So the first couple of days I kicked it with the family, and then I called her up and I met up with her. So anyway, we met up, and I ended up getting her pregnant. She got pregnant, and we had a daughter together. So I know I'm moving ahead a little too fast because listen, so let me try to put this in perspective a little bit. So in 93, okay, so the reason why I didn't plug in with the regiment is because of the situation I told you guys about with Duck. Now, I've already talked about it. Some of you already heard about it, but for those of you that haven't, let me just give you the short version. So when I caught my cases in 89, I was writing a female. Well, I was seeing a female named Marlene from the city. She was from Cortland. And, you know, before I got convicted and sent to the joint, she was coming up, she was visiting, and we were in a relationship. So I get convicted, I take my 7, I'm gone. They put me on a bus, I get shipped out, I go to prison. Now, during that time, I got that 7 years. You know, she fell off for a minute and she jumped back on the team, and she fell off, she jumped back on. And it's cool. Whatever she did while we weren't together, I can't be mad about that. However, when we talked about it and we got back together, I found out that she was involved with another homie from my neighborhood named Duck. And Duck was hermano. And that's a no-no, especially back in those days. Back in those days, we used to push it hard that there was, you were not to have any kind of inappropriate relationship with the homeboy, with another hermano's old lady or his mistress, his sancha. You weren't to have no kind of inappropriate dealings with them. It was a no-no. If you got caught for something like that, there was serious repercussions. When we used to break down the bonds, when we used to break down the street activities, these things were enforced. They were talked about extensively. So this is how I was educated. This is how I was indoctrinated. I was taught to not cross those lines, to be respectful around homeboys, old ladies, no matter how good they looked. None of that. I was the type of individual that if I was locked up with you and I gave you my word that I was going to go buy the pad and drop off some clothes for your kids or help your lady with some funds, you could trust me to do that, and I wouldn't go over there and either try to Gorilla Mac or Dirty Mac, you know what I mean? And just be scandalous. But there's a lot of motherfuckers that can't do that. You know what I mean? They, no matter how hard they try, they get out, they go and try to get at your lady, they try to get at your old lady, they try to get at your mistress, your sancha, and they'll stab you in the back quick. Hermanos, norteños, it don't matter. Even though they know it's wrong at the time, they're only thinking about one thing, and that's more important to them. So motherfuckers crossed that line. So Duck crossed that line. When I found out, I was like, you know what, man, fuck them both. Fuck them both. But I literally spent the remainder of my time when I was locked up, when I found out about it, plotting on Duck. I was like, when I get out, I'm going to punish this dude. I'm going to make sure he gets everything he got coming to him. And I felt like I was entitled to do that because it was law. You're not supposed to fuck with another hermano's old lady. So I felt like I was justified. If I went out there and smashed this dude, I felt like I was justified in that, I wouldn't get in trouble for doing it, even though he was a hermano. So anyway, I'm not going to go into the details of the story, but the reason why I didn't hook up with the regiment out there at that time is because I knew if I did, that they would try to talk me down and be like, B, let it go. And I couldn't do it. So I wanted to deal with that situation first, and then I was going to hook up with the regiment. So long story short, by chance encounter, I was out one night. I seen Duck and Marlene together out there, and I tried to get them. I had a pistol on me that night, and I seen him on the bus, and I knew where she lived in Cortland, in San Francisco. And I was in a truck with some other homies, and I beat them to their pad. I knew where they were going because I knew the route that that bus was taking. So, you know, the homies knew what time it was. We sped up. I got out, but Duck seen me. That's where I fucked up. He seen me that night, and I'm glad he did, because it probably would have turned out. It probably would have turned out bad. There's no telling how far I might have took it. Everything happens for a reason. So when he seen me, he didn't get off the bus. They stayed on the bus. And the next morning, he ends up reaching out to the two individuals that had the keys to the San Francisco regiment at that time. It was Little Roach and Dreamer. So I'm out there, and I'm like, fool got away last night, but I'm gonna catch him. Sooner or later, we're gonna bump heads. I'm gonna catch him out here somewhere. It's inevitable. It's gonna happen. So I get a phone call. Somehow these cats get my number, and Little Roach calls me. He's like, B, I need you to meet me at La Raza Park, bro. You available today? I'm like, yeah, probably, bro. And he's like, I need to see you, homie. It's only gonna take like 20 minutes, bro. Please, homeboy, meet me down there. I gotta talk to you about something of importance. I already knew what it was. So I'm like, all right, bro, I'll be down there. But let me also say this. Let me back up. Now, aside from running into Duck, I also see Marlene about a week after I got out. I seen her out there. She was out there with her kid, pushing a stroller by herself. And matter of fact, I was with my stepfather, and we were mobbing through the mission, and I seen her, and I'm like, hey, stop, pull over. I need to holler at her real quick. He didn't know her, but so I jump out, I approach her, we talk. I'm disgusted, but I don't let it show yet. I had a plan. You know what I mean? My plan was just like, I'm gonna beat it up, and you know, no disrespect to the females. That's how I was thinking at that time. I'm gonna beat it up, I'm gonna whoop it, not whoop it like beat her up like that. I'm talking about beat that thing up. But and then I'm just gonna fucking just toss her to the side like you know what she is. That's how I was looking. I wanted my get backs, my little run backs, whatever you want to call them. So, you know, she bit. She bit like a big mouth bass. You know, I'm like, yeah, you know, I'm gonna put you up in a spot. But she's crying about Duck, how he's whooping on her, and how their relationship's falling apart. And you know, she's telling me that they sleep in the same bed, but there's a pillow between them, and you know, they don't even touch each other no more. And I'm like, oh, okay, all right, you know, so you think I'm sucking all that up like I'm some kind of sucker? She's just trying to tell me what she wanted, you know, what she thought I wanted to hear. I wasn't stupid, but I was, you know, I was acting like I was believing it. Oh yeah, damn, that's fucked up. That's crazy. You guys ain't even intimate no more, and you know, yeah, what could have been, but you know, it is what it is. Anyway, so I get her to a hotel, do my thing, and that night, you know, the next morning, I was just like, hey, you gotta go, man. I don't even want to see your fucking face. Matter of fact, turn over and look at the wall, man. And I just completely just embarrassed her, man. But you know, she did exactly what I thought she'd do. She ran back, told Duck, and that's when he contacted these homies. So now, anyway, I felt like, you know, I was cool with that. I seen Duck, he peed on himself. So I was like, I still wanted to get him, but I was like, fuck this dude, man. And her, you know, I got my little runbacks on her, and you know, I chopped her down to nothing. So I meet up with the homies down there at La Raza Park. And I'm gonna be honest with you guys. In '92, around that time, there was a lot of shit that was going on in the city and San Francisco and San Jose. There was a lot of shit going on. So nobody trusted nobody. Motherfuckers was getting killed out there left and right. The San Jose regiment were dropping bodies left and right. San Francisco was tied in with San Jose at that time. real tight. I mean, we were working with that regiment with a lot of those guys, Lucky, Silencio, Spunkio, all those guys that got caught up in those 92 indictments were working with the San Francisco Regiment. Big Roach, Little Roach, Dreamer, Weasel, uh, Weddle, me, Chewy. So I didn't trust him. Anyway, I called a homie and I told him, bro, I need you to roll with me, bro. I gotta go down to La Raza Park. I gotta see the homies, but I need a pistol. I need one of them things, bro, because I don't know what their intentions are. And I gave him a little rundown on what it involved. Anyway, long story short, I go down there. I got a pistol in my pocket, and I have a conversation with Dreamer and Little Roach, and basically they tell me, B, I'm asking you, let it go, homeboy. Let it go. They had already had, I think at that time they had 2 kids, but Eddie was like, bro, look, man, I know how you're feeling, homie, and I get it, bro. Hermanos are not supposed to do that, and I know you feel like he got an issue coming. I get that, bro. But look, they got 2 kids. She's gonna do him just like she did you. She's dirty like that. She's gonna do him the same way. What is there to gain from smashing on this dude? You can smash him, but what's gonna happen, bro? Is it really worth it? Do you want her back? And honestly, I didn't. I didn't. I was disgusted in her. I was like, I'm cool, So he was the voice of reason that day. I let it go, even though I continue to ask and plead, like, let me punish this motherfucker just one time, man. One time, let me get mines, man. Let me do something to this dude. But they wouldn't let me. So I let it go entirely. Anyway, that was the reason why I didn't hook up with the San Francisco Regiment at that time. I had every intention on doing it right after that. Matter of fact, I had Eddie and Dreamer's number from that point on. So we had made plans to meet up the following week. So I was going to hook up. Now, I told you guys at that time in 93, my education as far as the street activities, it was minimal at best. I had some, education. I had a little bit of insight as far as how the street activities were. The last 6 months to the house, I did a lot. I broke down a lot of the street activities, but it's different when you don't have the hands-on experience, when you've never really been there before, and you don't have somebody that's been out there and that has been in the trenches. I didn't run into nobody like that. So there was a big part that was missing. All I really knew how to do was to go out there, generate a little bit of money, and send it back to cover my ass. So that's what I did. Now, before I could hook up with Little Roach and Dreamer, I remember I was out there and I heard they ended up catching parole violations, both of them. They got swooped up, and everybody was gone. So like right after that, about a week after that, I ended up getting snatched up. And I believe, if I remember right, this was for giving a dirty test. I smoked some fucking KJ. Dumbass, man. I want to say this was when I ended up hooking up with my daughter's mom. We went out to Fresno. This is when I told you guys I got into that fight with that bulldog. And when I was out there, I took a couple hits off of Leño, and fucking coincidence, the parole officer called the next day, and he's like, and I wasn't supposed to go nowhere out, 50 miles outside of San Francisco, 50-mile radius. So he calls me and he's like, hey, I need you to come in. And I had just fucking fired that shit up. And I was like, man, I can't make it right now. He's like, well, you need to get here early in the morning. I'm like, impossible. He's like, no, make it happen. I don't care what's going. I'm like, dude, I got a job. I'm working. He's like, well, where you at? I'll come. I couldn't do it. So I just avoided him for a couple of days until I got back to the city. But as soon as I got back, that's when I tried to run that contraption I told you guys about. Some of you, for those of you that don't know, and I hate to keep going over this stuff because I know it's redundant, but we got to get past the point to where we're closer up until around 98, 99, 2000, where, I was dealing with Mikeo a lot, the Salinas regimen, all that stuff. So those of you that have heard this before, man, go fucking drink a beer, go smoke a frajo, go eat a sandwich, go do something. But let me just say this. So when I came back to the city after being in Fresno, after getting off with that bulldog, my hand was broke. So I went to the parole office. But prior to going to the parole office, this parole officer I had, the motherfucker was this motherfucker was a punk, man. When I used to test for him, he would literally stand over my shoulder, like straight Peter Gazer, man. He would just stand over my shoulder and like just stare at my shit. And I'd be like, man, dude, give me some room, man. You know what I'm saying? I can't give you a test when you're standing up on me like that, man. And he's like, make it happen, man. He was an Africano, but he was a punk. Usually I've had some Africano parole officers and I connect with them and they're cool, man. But this dude he was just a punk, man. So anyway, me knowing how he used to get down when I had these tests, it made me go and buy a contraption. I bought a contraption. I want to say it's the Wizinator, right? It's synthetic piss that you hook up to a fucking thing that you wear. You put it around your waist. It's got a fucking rubber thing that looks just like a motherfucking chalizo or a motherfucking a chalizo. What the fuck is a chalizo? Some chorizo. I know you guys are gonna get a kick out of that one, man. A chorizo. Anyway, so you put the synthetic piss in there and it's got some warming packs so that when you give the test, it comes out, body temperature and all that. It's a good test. I thought it was on point, but some of you on this channel before have told me that shit don't work. Anyway, I go in there with one of those and I try to run it on this dude. And he comes on my right side, and that's the side that I had it on because he used to do that shit, stand on my shoulder. So I guessed, I was like, I'm gonna try to push up and make him come over here. That's the side I had it on, right? I had it taped all up to my junk, and I got it rigged to where I thought I could do the test. But when I push up over here, he's like, hey, scoot over, let me get in. I'm like, motherfucker, man. So I can't test. I sit there for a minute and I'm like, dude, it ain't happening. He's like, drink some water. Anyway, so I move it to the other side and I do the same thing. I push up on this side. He comes to this side. Hey, scoot over. So bottom line is I can't do it. And because we were going back and forth with this and I wasn't able to do it, he was like, dude, check it out. This is what I want you to do. Strip out. This is what he did. He pulled his cuffs out and he was like, so check it out, man. I need you to strip out right now. You either strip out or I'm putting you in cuffs because I know you're fucking trying to do something slick right now, right? So I was just like, here, man. I ripped it off, threw it in the fucking garbage, and he was like, tell your people to go. And I'm like, am I going back on a parole violation? Just straight up, just tell me. And he was like, man, just tell him to go and we'll talk about it. So I went out there, told my girl that, I told her, go open the elevator. This motherfucker's getting ready to violate me. Anyway, long story short, I ended up leaving from the parole office. I had my girl open up the elevator. I get in the car. I'm driving away. I'm telling her about it. My stepfather was with us and he's like, bro, why'd you leave? He would have never let you walk out of the fucking the waiting room if he was gonna violate you. So I'm like, you think so? Big old dummy. Turn the car around and let's go back. So we go back. As soon as I walk in, throws the cuffs on. Anyway, he tells me he's gonna give me a 30-day parole violation, and I'm like, oh, dude, I'll do that standing on my head, man. No problem. It's all good, man. But when it comes to shit like this, whenever I've been in situations where things look good or like I'm gonna catch a break. I ended up getting reamed, man, and that's what happened. I go in thinking I'm gonna get 30 days, and this is what happens. It's cold, man. So I go in, and because I'm validated, they shoot me to East Block. So I'm in East Block. I'm waiting to go to committee, and while I'm down there, I see a counselor, and I stop him. I'm like, "Hey, can I holler at you?" And he's like, "What's up?" And I'm like, "Check it out, man. I just came in the other day. I'm doing a 30-day dry out. Um, I'm doing a 30-day dry out. My parole officer told me he was gonna cut me loose in 30 days. How'd I go about to get my parole closed because I'm pressed for time? And you know, when are you guys gonna start processing my parole paper? He's like, 30 days. He's like, why are you in that state? I'm like, I'm validated. He's like, you're validated. Well, we don't do 30-day dry outs for validated gang members. He's like, so one of two things is gonna have to happen. Either I'm gonna call him right now, and either he's gonna have to let you go. We're gonna have to let you go tonight, or he's gonna have to violate you for something else because we can't do 30-day droughts for validated gang members. So I'm like, cool. I'm gonna get cut loose because I know damn well he's not gonna be that fucked up and hit me with some more charges after he told me he was gonna give me 30 days, right? Nah, man. Dude's gonna keep his word. Shit. What ends up happening is counselor comes back, tells me, oh boy's hitting you with some more parole violations, and it is what it is. So, okay. My girl was pregnant at that time. Anyway, I go to committee, I get cleared for the yard. I'm back out there with the homies now. And then screening ends up coming up about 50 days later. They offer me 9 months. I get told I was told I was gonna do a 30-day trial. Now these motherfuckers are offering me 9 months. So I'm like, hell nah, you're crazy, man. Nah, I'm gonna take this to board and they'll understand, right? They'll understand. They'll catch me. I'll catch a break. I'm gonna run that. My girl's pregnant. This is gonna be the first time as a a new father that I'm gonna see my child born, and I'm gonna play that card. And really, I was too. I mean, I wanted to see my daughter born. Um, but I had my priorities fucked up, man, and it was my fault. But so I refused the 9 month offer. They schedule a Morrissey hearing, and I go to Morrissey. And when I go in, I end up getting that one cat, that Africano that used to wear all the gold. Used to have mother love. For those of you that been around in the 80s and 90s, Mother Love she was cool as fuck. Everybody wanted to have her. But then there was that Africano that wore all that gold. Older cat, looked like what's his name? Willie the Pimp, the motherfucking the mayor from San Francisco. I forget his last name, but he looked like him. So I'm thinking I'm gonna catch a break. Maybe they'll hit me with, I think it was like 4 months before my daughter was gonna be born or something like that. So I'm thinking if I can get down to like 4 months, I'm cool. Well, I go in there, I run a good, I represent myself like a motherfucker, man. I talked till I was blue in the face. How about how I wanted to be there for my daughter the first time. This is something that can never be replaced. If I miss it, it's I'm gonna suffer for the rest of my life. And I mean, I put it on thick, man. The officer that stood in there during the hearing, he gave me a good game when I came out. He was like, dude, you represented the shit out of yourself. He was like, I thought he was gonna look out for you, man, because I mean, I bought it. You know what I'm saying? It was like, damn. Well, 9 months went out the window. Dude ended up hitting me with 10 months. I caught a 10-month violation flat time because my controlling case was violent. Anyway, I go to Pelican Bay, 93. I go up there to Pelican Bay, and I'm trying to bypass a lot of this stuff, and I'm fast forwarding it because I've already told you guys about the incident with the two NF members, the two former NF members, the two dropouts, the hermits, NF hermits that were up there in Pelican Bay that I got played out of pocket. The ones that played me out of pocket when I got up there. Little young ass 21, 22-year-old, first time in the Bay, and I run in these type of cats. Anyway, so that happens. I'm not going to get into it. I already talked about it. So I'm going to push it up to 94. Now, 94, a lot of the stuff that I do on the streets, I'm going to save that for war stories, because I was out there ripping and running, robbing people, beating people up, just doing gang banging, doing a bunch of dumb shit, getting involved in a lot of different things, robberies, extortions, a lot of criminal activity. So, I'll save the inner demons for some of the, the family oriented stuff, the things that I was doing, the other things that I was doing, during the times that I hit the streets, and I'll split it like that rather than to talk about the same thing in both of these platforms. So 94, I remember I caught another parole violation. That's all I'm going to say. I caught another parole violation, and I ended up getting transferred back to Pelican Bay. Now, when I get up here, this is a good time to end this episode. I don't want it to be too long, but I had to hit you guys when it's been too long. So 94, I ended up getting transferred back up to Pelican Bay. I go through Quentin. Again, Quentin was packed the fuck out. The homies were deep as fuck out there. There were a lot of good homies. There's a lot of shit going on with the Salinas Regiment at that time. And, there was, in 94, the NR was in self-destruct mode, probably at its highest point around 94. This is when I started to see a change in the movement. NR members taking advantage of the Norteños, the non-affiliated, just the regular Norteños. These guys were pulling a lot of power plays on these dudes. They were making a lot of them lock it up. A lot of them were walking away because they were discouraged. You had a lot of hermanos that thought that they were better than these youngsters because a lot of them were tagged back and they had that image. They looked like gangsters. Then you had these other individuals that didn't have no tattoos. They were just raza trying to do their time. The individuals that we were supposed to be taking care of, just the regular Norteños. But you had a lot of NR members that were using their status to push up on them. They were, a lot of them had personal issues that they were bringing in from the streets, issues that involve women, involve drugs, hood politics, or they just didn't like each other. But for whatever reason, the NR started preying on the Norteños. Now, this is when the whole movement just turned into a big fucking feeding frenzy. So you had the NR members turning on the Norteños, and then you had the NF members, you had us going after the rogue NR members, trying to identify the ones that were spreading poison amongst the ranks. Because in the beginning, you had individuals like Pee Wee from Gilroy, you had Donkey Kong from Salinas. You had individuals like that were pushing an agenda that was starting to spill over into the whole movement. Basically, they felt, and these were some good, solid NR members that had established themselves within the NR. They loved the NR. They didn't want to become C's. They felt content with where they were at as being NR members. Their thing was, you know what? We've established our own right to function as an individual entity. We don't have to take direction from the NF no more. Although we still respect our elders, and we'll still conform to the NF's policies and as the supreme authority on some level, but we feel like we've established ourselves enough to the point to where we can function ourselves within our own movement. We don't need Big Brother to micromanage us or tell us what to do. So that was a dangerous thing that was going on within the NR. You know, these guys started pushing that line, and we started targeting individuals like that. Pee Wee from Gilroy, again, DK. But by the time we realized what was happening and how far the NR had got away from us, it was too late. You had 100 DKs, 100 Pee Wees. So it almost became, you know, aimless to hit these individuals. So we had to find a better means to regain control and bring the movement back up under the NF safeguard. So that's what we did. By 97, you know, every method that was pursued as far as trying to bring the NR back under control failed. So by 97, it was like, you know what, fuck it. The only way to do this is to just disband them, pull the plug, shut the whole movement down, and take that away from them. Take the title, take it all away from them, and we'll bring them back in like that. Then, but it was a ploy. You know, I told you guys it was really a ploy. It was to regain control over the NR. That was one of the primary reasons for disbanding the NR off top. However, one of the other main reasons was to skirt the validation process. A lot of Norteños were getting validated that weren't hermanos. They weren't NR members. So this was something that we wanted the administration to hear about. We wanted the administration to hear that we were disbanding the NR. We're pulling the plug. We're shutting it down so that they could, you know, they could no longer continue to keep validating cats, to keep throwing cats in the SHU, because they, you know, when you throw somebody in the SHU, you put them on a shelf, they're meaningless. You know, they're of no use to us when we're locked up in the SHU programs. So, you know, there was a lot of moving parts to it. There was a lot of different reasons for disbanding the NR, but it really never went away. All it was just a big ass smoke screen, and there was a lot of, you know, the title practices were switched up as far as, like, you know, norteños and hermanos, northerners, the way that people were being identified. Anyway, let me just leave at a point where I can remember when I start up the next episode, episode 41, I'll remember. So when I go back from San Quentin, I get transferred to Pelican Bay. Now, when I hit the Bay, I ended up in C facility. By then, they had pretty much done away with the orientation block. I told you guys that in Pelican Bay for, I don't know, it was like 2 years, they had C1. They were using C1 as an orientation block. Well, they shut it down at some point, because when you first would drive up, you had to go through C1 and you would stay there for about a month. After you went to that first 30-day review, then they would send you off to another unit where you would stay until you either debriefed, paroled, or died. So I ended up getting shot over to C5. When I got to C5, I ended up getting transferred with another homie, and we celled up. But out of all the pods that I could go to up in the Bay, I just so happened to end up in the pod with Big Roach from Frisco, his little brother, Eddie Roach, the one I talked to at La Raza Park about Duck. And then you had Tony Mendoza from Yuba City, and he was celled up with Puppet George Franco from San Jose. I know those four were there. I believe Weddle might have came through there. I think Daryl Cost from Hayward, and then there was another little youngster, Negro, Paul Bocanegra from San Jose, that I want to say he came through there as well. That might have been C11, but I don't know. But anyway, so, you know, I ended up landing in the pod right there with the two Roach brothers. And, you know, you guys got to remember, these guys were in my neighborhood. They had a lot of influence, a lot of respect. And they were cats that I looked up to when I was a youngster, when I was from LTM and I was banging up Little Time Mission. I used to look up to these guys. But this is a good spot to stop. Let me just say this. I'm not going to keep making excuses. I know that Inner Demons fell off for a minute. War Stories fell off. I'm going to get it back on track. I've been trying to drop a lot more content these last couple days because of everything that's been happening. Some of it's out of our control. You guys know Sandman wasn't able to edit videos, and then there was just other things going on outside of YouTube. But we're back. We're back on track. We're going to start pushing it again. I know consistency is important for a lot of you. So I got you guys, man. You know, just I appreciate those of you that are patient and those of you that understand that sometimes, you know, there's things outside of YouTube that kind of pulls you away for a minute, man. And that's basically what it was. Anyways, this episode 40, it's your boy B. I hope you guys are having a happy new year. I hope everybody's staying positive out there. I was going to run a live tonight, but it's probably not going to happen. I'm going to try to cut a War Stories. If not, I'll try to cut one tomorrow. I got some other bangers coming up for you guys that I think you guys are going to like. So stay tapping in. All right, you guys, this your boy B. This episode 40 of Inner Demons, and I'm out.